preparing myself for a lot of talking. Hi guys, welcome back to my Therian territory. You may call me Thorn, and in today's video I want to talk about the concept of other-hearted, animal-hearted, Kith, sympath, other Kith, animal Kith, whatever you want to call it. I've had a lot of people asking me what exactly it is to be other-hearted and what exactly the difference is between other-hearted and Therian or otherkinity. And therefore I want to dedicate this entire video to the whole concept of being other-hearted. I myself am actually other-hearted, and so I will be using myself as an example at times. However, just like any other alter human identity, other-heartedness is a different experience for everybody, so my example isn't necessarily the example or anything. It can be different for everybody. It's also good to note that the whole topic of other-heartedness is still being researched to this day. We don't exactly know the direct definition of it. At least the definition we know is not as strict as, for example, the definition of Therian or otherkinity, and therefore I will mainly just be giving the definitions that I am aware of, and however you want to take it is entirely up to you. The definition of other-heartedness that, to my knowledge, is widely agreed upon is that other-heartedness means that you have a very big and great connection to a specific type of being, and you heavily identify with this being. The forms of this type of identity is that you heavily relate to the being, you feel like you could be family with this being, you have such a special connection to this being that you feel like you could communicate with them, for example, and you generally just have a big love and passion for this being. At the moment, the topic of other-heartedness is actually being researched by a well-respected member of the alter human community called House of Chimeras. They actually have a site dedicated to help inform people of the alter human community about the history of it, but also articles and anything like that, so I will definitely link that down in the description. They also have created a survey about being other-hearted and what your experience is like, so if you are over the age of 18, I definitely recommend checking it out in the description, so maybe you could help contribute to the research of being other-hearted. Now, as you may hear, unlike other identities within the alter human community, other-hearted or animal-hearted is actually not a very direct identity. Unlike with Therian or otherkinity, you don't directly identify as this being. However, it is still being included within the alter human community because it does have to do with identity in a more indirect sense. You feel such a great connection with this animal and you identify with this animal so much that it still does play a role within your own personal identity, even though you may not directly identify as the being. Now, there are a lot of different synonyms within the alter human community that all revolve around the concept of other-heartedness. So we have other-hearted, animal-hearted, Kith, other Kith, animal Kith, and sympath, and then there's also the concept of a heart type, which is the being that you heavily relate to, that is your other-hearted identity, so to speak. Now, to each person, every term may have a slightly different definition, so it is up for personal interpretation. However, within the community, it is pretty much widely agreed upon that all of these terms evolve around the same concept, which is other-hearted. For me personally, I know that all terms come down to the same definition. However, I do prefer to use Kith for my animal-hearted identities, and I prefer to use sympath for my fiction Kith identities. So now, it may be interesting to note that it is frequently seen within a community that if you have an other-hearted identity, cameo shifts of this identity may occur more frequently than any other creatures. A cameo shift basically means that you experience any type of shift that is not directly related to any of your Therian or otherkin identities. So you experience a shift that is not related to the animal or the creature you identify as. So for example, I am Tiger Kith. I very much relate to tigers. I look up to tigers. I have a very strong and deep connection with tigers, but I don't identify as a tiger. Yet I do frequently experience cameo shifts of tigers. This may be a little confusing to some, and I can tell you, yes, it can be, because when you are questioning a certain kin type or kid type, sometimes you don't really know the difference and you kind of question which of the two it would be, and sometimes it can be a little hard to tell, that's for sure. For a long time, I did actually question the tiger as a stereotype because I experienced these frequent cameo shifts. However, at some point I was kind of like, okay, this is not directly what I identify as. While I do very much look up to tigers and I compare myself to tigers a lot and I love tigers, a whole bunch. I don't necessarily directly identify as a tiger. I don't see myself as a tiger. And the shifts that I experience are definitely cameo shifts because they don't feel like me, even though I experience them. Then you might be wondering, what exactly is the difference between being Kith and being kin? What is the difference between being other-hearted and a therianthrope or otherkin? The first way to know the difference is that often Kith and kin are being compared to identifying as and identifying with. Some people don't exactly agree with this comparison because it all comes down to English language. And within the English language, identifying as basically means that you actually see yourself as that, while identifying with basically means that you heavily relate to something but don't directly see yourself as that. So when you are Therian or otherkin, you actually identify as the being. You actually feel like the being, you experience being that being. But when you are other-hearted, you identify with the being. You heavily relate to the being and you kind of feel as if it is part of your identity, but you don't directly identify as the being. A better explanation I can give that is more widely agreed upon is the difference between blood family and chosen family. When you are Therian or otherkin, you feel as if a certain being is family by blood. You actually feel as if you share the same blood. You actually think that you are part of that species or creature or whatever. However, with chosen family, you actually feel as if you are family with a certain being, even though you may not be blood related with one another. So you don't necessarily see yourself as part of them, however, you do feel family with them. You do feel a big connection with them. To dive a little more further into that is the concept of connection itself. When it comes to being other-hearted, feeling a great connection to a certain being is what being other-hearted is about. However, and not a lot of alter humans may know this, when it comes to therianthropy and otherkinity, connection is actually not required. When you are Therian or otherkin, while it does happen a lot, you don't actually have to feel a great connection with the animal you identify as. Especially therianthropy is more about the involuntary experience you have. So when questioning a specific being and you question whether it is a heart type or Kith type or a therianthrope or kin type, you could ask yourself, is it rather a matter of connection, that you feel great connection to them, or do you actually experience involuntary behavior of this animal? Do, however, keep cameo shifts in mind and ask yourself if you actually feel as if you are that being yourself. A side note I can give to that, which is also often a misconception when questioning a ther or kin type, is that your fondness towards this animal doesn't really matter when you are questioning a ther or kin type. So when you have a favorite being or a favorite animal, for example, that fondness will not determine whether it is your ther type or kin type, but it could definitely indicate that you are other-hearted with this being. The last thing I wanted to note is that it is generally a lot easier to confirm a heart type or a Kith type rather than a kin type or a ther type, because it is simply a less heavy identity. Kith types or heart types can come and go, and you can suddenly feel a great connection to a being and then lose that connection again, etc, etc. While for ther types and kin types, it defines who you are, and that will not necessarily change all of a sudden. Your ther type or kin type can only change as much as your personal identity changes, while for heart types and Kith types, it can be as fast as liking something and then no longer liking something. It is a lot easier to confirm a heart type or a Kith type because you can just look at a certain being and be like, wow, I feel such a great connection to them, then that must be like my heart type or my Kith type. While when searching for a Therian or otherkin identity, this can take actual months before you actually confirm anything, because it literally defines you. So that was pretty much all of the information I could gather about being other-hearted or animal-hearted or whatever you experience. And now you might be wondering, but Thorn, what exactly are your Kith types then? Well, I have actually mentioned in my previous videos in the past that I am actually animal-hearted, and therefore I do have a special bond with certain types of animals, but I've actually never really came out to you guys as fiction Kith. I've actually never said anything about the fiction sympaths that I have. Well, I am actually tiger Kith and butterfly Kith, meaning I have a very deep and special connection to tigers and butterflies. I have actually made a video about this before, but it is very, very old, so I would not be surprised if you haven't seen it. And as I explained before, I like to refer to my fiction Kiths as fiction sympaths, and my sympaths would be Tarzan from the 1999 Disney movie, Kida from Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and Maeve from Wolfwalkers. I feel like all of the beings I have mentioned are not beings that I don't necessarily identify as. I don't actually feel like I am all of these beings. However, they do kind of make a part of my identity in some way or another. All of these beings are part of my journey in how I found out who I am as myself, and they also all make up a part of my identity in a very special way, and I'm very happy to have them. I would love to know if you are animal heart or other hearted and what your Kith or heart types are. What is your experience around that, and how do you feel the difference between your Kith types and your kin types, for example? And also, what type of terminology do you use? And do you feel like all of the terms that I've mentioned around other heartedness or animal heartedness have different types of meanings? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'd love to read it all. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please leave a like down below, or maybe comment down below. Or if you have any critique, you can also comment down below, of course. And if you really like my videos and want to see more in the future, perhaps consider to subscribe. And I will be seeing you guys in my Therian territory in the next video. Bye. A massive thanks to my Therian territory members Bloody Tommy, Daphne's Den, Shadow the Wolf, Arden Zephyr, Clutch, Thomas, Voilo, and Waita. Join the Therian territory membership for early access, extra features and content, and more personal contact with me.